What's going on, everybody? And I hope you're enjoying your Hump Day Wednesday morning so far. This is MYG Jeffy T85 here, and I'm just going to talk about the New York Mets last night losing another starting pitcher in free agency and what players they might look to potentially fill that role of losing their potential former starter. Now, as we know, the New York Mets have already lost Jacob deGrom in free agency when he signed with the Texas Rangers, but they were able to at least recoup the loss of deGrom by bringing in former Houston Astro and Detroit Tiger Justin Verlander. Well, now it looks like the New York Mets are going to have to supplement another loss in that starting rotation, as last night the Philadelphia Phillies were able to snare away former New York Mets starting pitcher Taijuan Walker on a 4-year, $72 million deal. So the former Met is now officially heading over to Philadelphia to be part of the starting rotation of the Philadelphia Phillies. It's like the Phillies love signing former Mets. They did it with a trade for Syndergaard. They signed Zach Wheeler in free agency, and now they take Taijuan Walker. And Walker actually had a pretty solid season last year. He actually went 12-5 on the season for the Mets last year in about 30 starts, and he had a 3.49 ERA. The problem with Taijuan Walker was he got off to such hot starts during both years of his Mets career, but then he started faltering towards the end of the seasons, so he was a little bit unreliable at times, and he was pretty much, that fourth or fifth starter. You could even argue at times he was the third starter. He was a former All-Star because he pitched at such a high level. Back in 2021, he was actually named to the MLB All-Star team, but then we saw what happened in the second half of that season where he pretty much tailed off, and he was starting off at about a 2 ERA, and then he ended up ending the season at about a 4 ERA because he was so lousy during the second half of that season. So we have to see what the New York Mets are going to end up doing now to replace a guy like Taijuan Walker in the rotation. And there were reports going on last night about the Japanese pitcher Kodai Senga, who was actually being posted. He was actually going to be posted, but at the same time, it was going to cost no fee to be able to try and at least get in the bidding for starting pitcher Kodai Senga. And it seems like a lot of teams right now are interested in trying to sign Kodai Senga to their rotation. But it's kind of interesting that the New York Mets have viewed Kodai Senga as a viable option at that number 3 pitching role. And especially the New York Mets were one of the highest teams in terms of signing a guy like Kodai Senga. So that could mean that Kodai Senga is very, very much on the New York Mets rotation radar, and they're thinking about signing a guy like Kodai Senga to take up for the loss of Taijuan Walker. And it sounds like the New York Mets are pretty much okay with letting Chris Bassitt go. So the Mets are pretty much letting a lot of these guys in free agency go, and it looks like they're going to be fine with just trying to replace them with either internal options as well as, a couple of these lower ranked pitching staff options. So, Kodai Senga is just one of those options right now. You still have Carlos Rondon out there that you can potentially snag up. I was going to say maybe a guy like Jameson Taillon because of the fact that he's still out there, but he just got signed by the Chicago Cubs last night for 4 years and about $86 million. So $68 million. So the New York Mets are still looking for middle of the rotation options right now because at the moment the Mets starting rotation is consistent. Justin Verlander, Max Scherzer headlining the rotation. You got Carlos Carrasco who had he decided to have his option picked up, so he's going to be back with the Mets in that rotation. And you still got young players like Tyler McGill and David Peterson to round out the rest of that New York Mets rotation. But if you can bring in a guy like a Kodai Senga, slot him in at that third spot, or if you even find a way to bring back Chris Bassitt and you can slide Senga to that fourth rotational spot and you got Carlos Carrasco at the end of the rotation, that's not too bad for what potentially could have been an absolute disaster for that New York Mets starting rotation. So the Mets end up losing 2 starting pitchers so far this offseason. Obviously, Jacob deGrom signing that huge deal over there with the Texas Rangers for what he got for about $185 million over 5 years. Obviously, it could be a 6-year signing a 6-year contract if in fact his option gets picked up in 2026. So he could end up being a 6-year option. And then obviously the Mets being able to replace him with the Justin Verlander deal. And now the Mets are trying to be able to see if they can replace Taijuan Walker in the starting rotation, with Kodai Senga seeming to be their top option in terms of slotting into the third rotational spot. And it would be a decent pickup, especially with the fact that Kodai Senga is apparently looking for a win now baseball team, and he's looking for the big market. Obviously, you can't get any bigger than the bright lights of New York City. Even though it isn't the Bronx, Queens is still not bad either. So just keep that option open. But the Mets have officially lost Taijuan Walker to their division rival Philadelphia Phillies. He signed last night for a 6-year, $72 million, 4-year, $72 million deal with the Phillies, and the Mets now are trying to look to see if they can replace Taijuan Walker in the middle of that rotation, and potentially looking at Kodai Senga, the former Japanese pitcher that is looking like he's going to be posted, and the Mets seem to be one of the teams that are highest priority in signing Kodai Senga to a deal. So if you guys like this video, hit the like button below. Sub up if you haven't already to NYGJeffyT85 for more breaking news, updates, and chatter surrounding the New York Mets. Turn on the bell for notifications on the next video surrounding the New York Mets. And let me know in the comment section who you would like to see the New York Mets go out there and try to replace the recently departed Taijuan Walker in the middle of that rotation. If you're fine with a guy like Kodai Senga as your potential third option, or would you rather just try to see if the Mets can sign back Chris Bassett to be that third option in the starting rotation for the New York Mets? So I thank you very much, everybody. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your Hump Day Wednesday. Take it easy, and as always, let's go New York. Let's go New York Mets. As always, all you got to do is you got to believe in those boys from Queens.